What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the December reading wrap-up. Thank you so much for being here. If you like all things books, you're definitely in the right spot. My name is Jaya and I talk about all things books on this channel, and I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday. Every once in a while I'll have some randomness spattered throughout this entire video series, I guess you could call it, or on this channel, where it would include like travel vlogs and things like that, but for the most part it is focused on books. So that being said, welcome, and let's talk all things books. For those of you that are new here, thank you for being here, and for those of you who are returning, it is so nice to have you back, and I can't wait to continue to grow this reading community as we embark on this reading journey together. That being said, let's get started. Now, this month of December, I did end up reading quite a few books. I think I ended up reading a total of 18 books altogether, so it is going to be a slightly longer video. However, a couple of the books I have done series reviews for, so since I've already had a separate video kind of dedicated to those books, I won't be going into those books in as much detail or review, particularly at this moment in time. That being said, let me figure out what I did with my phone. Okay, so I was able to find my phone. Now, a few things that I did want to mention. I did redo the shelves. I don't know if we like the leaves. I'm kind of loving it. I love the vines across the entirety of the bookshelves. I just think it adds a little bit of pep to the bookshelves. And then I also recently received a book nook for Christmas. If you guys watched my what I got for Christmas videos, the first one is a readathon for 12 hours plus what I got for Christmas for myself, as well as a second part 2, which is basically a 12-hour readathon plus what I received for Christmas. And one of the things that I happened to receive was a beautiful little book nook. So I'm so excited to have it built and lit up and ready to go on the bookshelf. All exciting and celebratory. We did have to reshuffle a few things across the board to make sure that the book nook had enough space. But overall, I'm kind of loving the feel and the vibe of that in the bookshelves. So that is that. So coming back to the books, there was one book that I did purely audio, and that is the book that I wanted to start with today. It was a holiday romance within the theme of Christmas, and it's called A Very Bossy Christmas by the author K.L. Loring. I'm trying to see if my phone will focus, and I just don't think it's going to. Sorry guys, I wish I knew better how to use a computer, but I really don't. I'm like tech challenged. But the first book is called A Very Bossy Christmas. It's in the Very Holiday series by the author K.L. Loring, and Audible happens to have all 3 of the holiday romance series books in one book that you can download and listen to. That's not what I was trying to do. But here we go. This is books 1 through 3 of that same series. I personally like these covers better, and if I find them, I will pick them up because I cannot find them on the Kindle or the Nook. But these are, again, by K.L. Loring, K-A-Y-L-E-Y, Loring, L-O-R-I-N-G. So I absolutely loved A Very Bossy Christmas. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's very predictable. It's basically a story about a man who is a lawyer. He's very successful. He's very well known in his lawyer community, and he's kind of a little bit of a dick, just a smidge. And he happens to have an assistant who is absolutely gorgeous and can dish as well as get. And so he loves her because he loves the fact that she knows how to banter with him and knows how to keep up with him and can basically make sure all of his needs from a professional standpoint are met. And he's very physically attracted to her as well. So naturally, there's a family wedding coming up and he decides he needs a date. So he asks her to go on a fake date with her and fake date with him and basically be his date to the wedding of his brother. It's just as it sounds like the fake dating trope typically has. It's very cute. It's very fun. It's so wonderful to see the two characters kind of learning each other and getting to know each other. So very fun read. Solid 4-star read for me. Definitely very holiday, very Christmassy, and puts you in the season for sure. The next book series that I wanted to talk about are only on Kindle for myself. I did not end up getting the physical copies of this book, but they are by Kate Stewart, who is the same author as the author who did the Ravenhood series. And I can honestly say I really enjoyed the overall vibe and feel of the story. I thought it was super, super cute. So this is actually following the first of two siblings. Whitney is the middle child in her family. She is a sister of a sister and a brother who have happily married lives. And basically it follows her story of coming home for Christmas. And lo and behold, her brother, who also happens to be a bit of that younger brother, attitude-y, irritating younger brother vibes, brings along a coworker who just happens to be her ex that broke her heart from college. And they're now well into their 30s, almost 40s, and they are both getting the opportunity to rekindle. And she finds out throughout the course of the story that the whole reason why he came to family Christmas was to basically get close to her and see if they couldn't rekindle that flame. I would say from a Christmas vibe, this was like a solid 3.5. I would say from a spice perspective, it was like a solid 3.5. And then I would say from a romance perspective, it was probably a solid 4 for me. So I would say overall, this book was right around 3.75 to 4 for me. It definitely fit the Christmas mood and the Christmas read seasonal vibes. I don't know if I would read this at any other time of the year, but I did really enjoy reading it as a Christmas book, and I did think it fit the mood perfectly. The next book that I want to talk about is the second book in this series, which is called The Slight Before Christmas. This book, if it cooperates with me, is absolutely adorable as well. This is actually following the second sister, the older sister, and it's basically talking about how she and her husband deal with the fallout they're having with their children. It is set 3 years after the first book was set, so at this point the couple from the first book are happy and everything, and so this is now following the story of the elder sister and her husband, Thatch. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know what the yawns are about. Actually, I do. It's because I took some medication for my cold and it's just been nonstop drowsy, so I apologize. Anyways, The Slight Before Christmas is following the second sister, Serena, and her husband, Thatch, as they navigate the difficulties of parenthood. Personally, I actually enjoyed this story a lot more, and the reason is I really like the kids in the book. They're very, very, very much in a difficult phase, and they know what's right, but they choose to do the wrong things anyways. Peyton is a preteen, and Gracie is a preteen, and Peyton is about to be 5, and basically they have just had it with their kids. They don't know how else to relate to them, how else to talk to them, and so they say, we're going to put an ultimatum down, and the more you misbehave, the more we are going to be, aggressive with parenting and taking away Christmas. And you really see a change in the kids. And you also get to see the kids appreciate the story of their parents because they show flashbacks of how the two met and how they became a couple, as well as Thatch's sketchy past and how he becomes who he is today. Overall, I thought this novel was super cute. I really enjoyed this one. This one was a solid 4-star for me. Again, very holiday vibes, very Christmassy, very family vibes and orientation. And I just absolutely love that. And it was just the perfect Christmas read for me. The next few books that I'm going to show are actually part of the 12-hour readathon that I did, as well as were these books. So I'm not, again, going to go into too much detail with them. But the first one that I actually wanted to show was Spectacular. Now, this is a cute little novella written by Stephanie Garber within the Caraval series. It follows the stories of Donatella and Scarlett as they are navigating their relationships with Julian and Legend accordingly and ruling the kingdom. It once again shows Tella as a very, very obnoxious, bratty human being. So it was really hard for me to get into this story. And I kind of wish we got more of the elder sister and her relationship with Julian in this book. I mean, Legend is really interesting to me, but I'm just not a fan of Donatella, the second sister. So this was a bit of a hit and a miss, swing and a miss for me. I wouldn't say it was terrible. It definitely fit the holiday vibes. The overall illustration quality of this book definitely added to the enjoyment of reading it. So I would still say I enjoyed the experience, but not my favorite book overall. I would give this book a solid 2.85 3 stars for me. But enjoyable, but I wouldn't say it was anything to write home about. Next up, I have the book that was picked for our book club. So I am part of a book club called the Overbooked Book Club. We basically meet once a month on Zoom to discuss our book choice of the month. The polls are usually put up about 2 to 3 weeks before the new month starts, so there's plenty of time to get the book in question. And then we basically read the book over the course of the month and meet up on the last week of the month in order to discuss the book of choice. This month, in December, well, I shouldn't say this month because it's January now, which is insane to me. But in December, we had read Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. This is my first B.K. Borison book, and I do happen to have the special edition copy from Illumicrate, and I think this book is absolutely stunning. What I will say about the overall feel of this book, I love the main male lead character, Luca. I just really, really, really can't stand our main female lead. I just find her a little bit irritating is the best way I can describe her. Like, maybe it's just me and the name like Stella, Tella, all these things. I don't know. But like, she just seems as that character that's very unable to communicate, and miscommunication tropes are some of my least favorite tropes when it comes to romance. So I did really struggle with that aspect of this book. Overall though, the side characters are great, and the book that the character the second book is about is actually my favorite character from this book. So I am excited to read that storyline and plot. However, I will say that the main character in this book kind of ruined it for me, but I do love the male lead. Overall, I think this was like super cute. It's like kind of second chance romance, and it's also a little bit of that miscommunication trope, and it's also friends to lover. Like, it's hard to express exactly what this book was for me in terms of the genre, but it kind of encompasses all three of those things for me. I would give this book a solid like 3 stars. I don't think it was anything to write home about, but I also don't think it's the worst book I've ever read. And I did like it enough where I do see myself reading the next book. The main thing I will say, though, that really caught my attention, more so than the plot, was the writing. B.K. Borison's writing is beautiful. I loved her prose. I loved the quotes. Like, I started reading this book and I actually was like, I want to pick up a highlighter and annotate. The only other series where I've really truly felt the need to do that was with the Magnolia Park series. So that was a really pleasant surprise, and I did thoroughly enjoy that. I've also highlighted passages from Alex Michaelides' books before, and I think they're like Alex Michaelides, this author, B.K. Borison, and like the author of Magnolia Parks, like all of these, Jessa Hastings, all of these authors just have that prose concept down, and the quotes that they write are just so beautiful, at least to me, and I really did enjoy annotating the heck out of this book. All right, next up we have a series. So I decided that I really wanted to read The Christmas Fix, which has been sitting on my bookshelf now for at least a year, if not longer. And I recently discovered that I truly enjoy Lucy Score's writing. I absolutely loved the Riley Thorne series by her. I absolutely loved the Knockabout series by her. And so I really was like, okay, I'm probably going to enjoy this as well. I also really enjoyed the one standalone I've read by her, which is...
Sorry, I don't understand. Sure thing.
Sorry, I don't know why Siri decided to talk to me. But I like really enjoyed By a Thread by her as well. So I was like, okay, I want to read this. Now, truth be told, Mr. Fixer-Upper is the first book in this series. Now, this book is very cute. It's basically following a brother and sister who are twins on a TV show, and the male character, Gannon, his relationship with his producer, Paige. The book itself is very cute. It was fun to read. It was like enjoyable. The banter was cute. The relationship vibes were cute. However, it's very summery, and I'm a mood reader. So this is very hardcore summer vibes, and I was in very hardcore winter cozy vibes. So I'm not gonna lie, this book put me in a slump for that reason and that reason alone, and the fact that the story felt a little bit predictable for me. I did end up giving this book a 3-star. So I didn't love it all that much. The book is basically following the brother in the twin duo as they navigate fixing up homes. They basically help rebuild homes for people who have lost their homes or who are on hard times, and catch that on film. Paige is basically kind of like, not the producer. What is she? She kind of is like the director, if you will, of the show. She helps like handle all the crazy things that happen in the show. She helps direct certain things. So she's very good at what she does. But the only issue I have with her character is, again, miscommunication tropes. That brings us into the Christmas Fix. The Christmas Fix is following the sister in the duo. So we followed Gannon in the first one. We're following Kat in the second book. And her relationship is with a single dad, small town vibes. She basically has to go back to the town of Mary, which has been struck by a disaster, to help rebuild the homes and the community there. And he is just not having it. He just feels like, why does she have to come in and like, you know, use my town for ratings, and like she's doing this for all the wrong reasons. So Noah's just really upset about this, and it kind of showcases their relationship and how he grows over time to realize that she's more than just what she looks like on TV. And she starts to realize like how much of a heart Noah really has. This book was very cute, but again, like I said, I was in a little bit of a reading slump when I finished Mr. Fixer-Upper. So I went into this, I think, with the wrong mindset. I gave this book overall a 3 stars. Okay, so next up I have the Laurie Gilmore books. So Laurie Gilmore is the author of Pumpkin Spice Cafe as well as the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. And I really enjoyed both of those books. And the third one in the series is called The Christmas Tree Farm. And is there a more perfect cover or idea of a book for Christmas time? In my humble opinion, no. I loved this book. This book delivered exactly what I wanted it to deliver. It gave me all the cozy vibes. I love the grumpy sunshine trope. I love the fact that we get to see one of the main characters from the first book's older brother kind of find romance and settle into his life. I like to see an independent woman who comes from wealth kind of let down her guard and really allow herself to blossom and create this relationship with this beautiful man that she thinks she doesn't deserve. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very, very cute, and it definitely hit home for me. So this is definitely a 4-star read. Do I think it would be a 4-star read if I read it at a different time of the year? Probably not, but do I think it was a 4-star read for what I was looking for and the way I enjoyed the Christmas vibes? Absolutely, I adored this book, would recommend. And overall, this entire series I just think is like a warm hug in a blanket. It's just so cozy and so fun to read, and this one definitely gives the winter vibes. Next up, I had a book that really, really struck a chord with me, and that was The Kingdom of Sweets. This book by Erica Johansson was very well done. It's a retelling of Nutcracker with a little bit of a twist to it. It kind of follows the idea of Clara, but also her twin sister. And her twin sister, and also this series is set in Russia. Her twin sister is Natasha. Drosselmeyer in this book is actually kind of shown as this evil, power-hungry type of character who's looking to just like have the villagers eating out of his palm because he has so much power and they want his blessings. Basically, in the idea of this book, Clara is the sparkling light. She is supposed to be the lighter twin. Everything around her is always happy, cheerful. She's a beautiful girl. Everyone is constantly trying to garner attention from Clara. Meanwhile, Drosselmeyer determines that Natasha is the dark twin, meaning that everything is kind of not as it seems. She can see all the darkness in people. She can see the twisted turns and the ways that people's minds think in like inappropriate ways. And the book starts off with her having a crush on someone who is then betrothed to her sister, who has always danced through life. And Natasha is very, very upset about this. And that's what kind of cues in the concept of the Nutcracker and traveling to the other world where they meet the Sugar Plum Fairy and etc., etc. It's a much darker take on the Nutcracker. It really speaks to human motivations, human philosophies, the idea of what defines family, what defines success, what defines beauty. And it's a very interesting book. It's set during the early times of the revolution, when there's like turmoil between the nobles as well as the working class of the community. It's a very interesting read. I genuinely really enjoyed it. I think it was a lot of fun. I think it was well researched. And I also think like for a Nutcracker plot, it was very, very well done. And I would definitely recommend this. This was a solid 4.5-star read for me. I really, truly enjoyed this book. Next up, I have a fun one. This is a book that was also in the 12-hour readathon that I did. This is The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. It's kind of an Agatha Christie-ish vibe. So basically, we have two mystery authors who don't get along at all, who are invited to the home of a quote-unquote fan of Maggie, our main girl in this book. When they show up, this person who has invited them to their home happens to be no other than her favorite author of all time. In the midst of all of this, the family is also arriving and they're basically doing a lovely Christmas dinner. However, all of a sudden, Eleanor, our main female who had been the amazing writer that inspired both Maggie and Ethan, ends up disappearing, and they have to figure out how that happened and where she is. The belief is someone is actively trying to murder her. They have to figure out who and close out the mystery. So they go for a nice little retreat and end up solving a murder together, and both of them kind of have to put their differences aside in order to work together. It's a very cute romance. It's fun, it's fast-paced, it's enjoyable. It definitely gives the Christmas vibes as well, and perfect for the winter season. It's a great cozy mystery read. I would give this book a solid 3.5 stars. Next up, I have my first Megan Quinn book ever, and that is How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. I was pleasantly surprised with how much I loved this book. I thought this book was hilarious. I loved the banter between the two main female lead and male lead characters. I loved the side characters in this book. I really hope more books get released within this setting because it was just such a cute town. The whole town screams Christmas, and they basically are competing against each other in the Christmas Kringle competition to see who gets named the most Kringlest of them all. It's just such a cute novel. The entire town is involved in it, and there's definitely flashbacks to like childhood versus now. It's definitely second chance childhood lover romance book, and it's just I loved this book. I ate this book up. That's all I'm really going to say about this book, because I feel like speaking on it anymore kind of gives away the plot line. Not that you can't figure it out just from reading the back, because it is a classic Christmas romance. But what I will say is enemies to lover, childhood lovers, it's so cute, and I absolutely loved this book. Loved this book. This was a solid 4.5 read for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next up, I have Snowden for Christmas by Sarah Morgan. This is my first Sarah Morgan that I've ever read, and I can honestly say that this was surprisingly very enjoyable. It basically follows the story of a family that's snowed in for Christmas and their banter and their overall relationship. It's following primarily 3 siblings, 2 sisters, and a brother. The brother also happens to be a very, very successful CEO of a company. Entered his love interest. She basically shows up at the door because she is trying to sell him on working with her company for marketing, and has been trying to reach him through his assistant, who approved her arriving at his house. But of course, he's on Christmas break, so he had no idea this was going on. And so she just shows up at his house, and his siblings and him had basically told their mom that he is dating a woman with her name based on a photo that he had seen of her on a magazine cover. And now all of a sudden, all chaos breaks loose because the family believes that this woman is dating their son. Meanwhile, their son is like, I have no idea who this woman is, and this woman just gets caught in the middle of it all. The elder sister is also in a interesting place with her relationship. She's a doctor. She's very, very successful, but she's not the best at relationships or like talking through her emotions. So she's not really ready for her family to meddle in her affairs, but she is bringing a boyfriend home for the first time, which is leading to a lot of question marks within the family. And then last but not least, we have the youngest sister, who is not as successful as her older brother and older sister, but she is very happy with what she does, and she's very, very good at it. She works with children, essentially, and she's primarily a nanny, but she is thinking about moving back home. Her only goal in life is to have a child, and she's kind of accepted the fact that she's never going to find romance because her love of her life didn't really have the time to show his interest in her, and she feels now that he is in charge of a ward, he is unable to give her the attention that she would like. And so she has decided that she does want to start a family, but she wants to start it alone. Basically, you get to see all of these relationships trickle in through the book. You also get to see the parents' relationship with their children and the grandma's relationship with her grandchildren, as well as her daughter and son. And it's such a cute story. I really, really ate this book up. This was like actually closer to a 5-star read for me. This was a 4.8. I don't think it was a 5-star, but it was like a 4.8 because I think it's perfect for the holiday season. I love the dynamic of the family characters. It is a little unreasonable. It is a little unrealistic. It is a little ridiculous, but that's kind of what you're expecting in a Christmas novel. So loved this book, and it definitely warmed my heart. Next up, I have a translated piece of literature. It's a Japanese author, Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and it's called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is a series of 5 books, but the concept is when you walk into this cafe and you sit down with a cup of coffee in a very specific seat, you can go back to a specific moment in time. And when you revisit this moment in time, you get the opportunity to talk to a loved one or redo a moment in your life that happened in a different way, with the understanding that it will not change the outcome of what is happening now. However, it may impact the future. It's a very, very interesting concept, this idea of revisiting moments in your life with the understanding that it may not necessarily change your future, however, giving you peace of mind with what occurred and what happened. Overall, this was a really fascinating read for me. There are 4 different stories that are shared in this book. One is about a sister who is basically asking repentance from her other sister who she lost. Another one is a very, very successful, beautiful woman who had a wonderful relationship and was bummed out when her partner said that he was leaving. And instead of like really understanding closure of what they were doing with their relationship, she kind of like barks at him and he leaves to America. And now 3 years later, she gets the opportunity to potentially go back to that moment in time and redo it. You had another couple that's basically a elder couple that the wife is also a trained caretaker and nurse, but her husband is starting to develop dementia. And she gets to go back in time and talk to her husband before the dementia is truly settled in to get some clarity on their relationship. And then last but not least, you're following the story of the owner of the cafe, or the manager of the cafe, and his wife. She is a very, very loving young woman who is carrying her first child, but her body is very weak. So she actually chooses to go forward in time in order to meet her future daughter and just like tell her what an honor it was to carry her. It was a very, very moving story, beautifully written storylines, and just a very, very beautiful plot. And all the characters are kind of interwoven throughout all the different stories as you progress through the book. And overall, I would definitely recommend this book, and I am looking forward to reading the rest of the series. This was a solid 4-star read for me. Next up, I had a book that I thought was going to be absolutely amazing, but it actually ended up being a little bit of a disappointment for me, and that was Nothing Like the Movies. Lynn Painter's writing style, Lynn Painter's books are so cute and so amazing. Her first book, the prequel to this book, Nothing Like the Movies, Better Than the Movies, is one of my favorite books of all times as far as young adult goes. I have probably reread that book at least 2 or 3 times, and I really enjoy the other 2 books that she wrote as well in her young adult collection. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, and it's actually following these 2 characters after they've progressed on to college. I thought this book was absolutely wonderful, the second half of the book. The first half of the book was really, really frustrating for me because it was very slow, and a lot of the things that our main male character was doing in order to get the girl character's attention didn't quite hit home in the same way that his actions in Better Than the Movies did for me. So that was a little frustrating. There's also a fake dating trope that happens in this book, which is a really, really hard thing to watch because it was just such a fail. And it was meant to be that way. It was written that way, but it was just like difficult for me to read and really get into. Overall, I would say that this was a 3-star read for me. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It just wasn't what I was expecting it to be, considering that Better Than the Movies is probably an all-time 5-star read for me. I love that book. And so this book was just, I was expecting more, if that makes any sense. But if I were to pick this up and read it as a standalone read, it is entertaining, it is very cute. And I do think if you've read Better Than the Movies, it's definitely worth reading Nothing Like the Movies, but it just doesn't have the same punch or hit that Better Than the Movies had for me. Last but not least, I'm going to do a quick summarization of 4 books. This is the final set of books that are completed within the Solaria series. There is a new book called Neverkeep that was released this year by the crazy sisters Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. I don't know how they come up with the stories that they come up with. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant authors in terms of weaving a story. Writing is not my favorite, but overall very entertaining. So I had previously read the Zodiac Academy series as well as Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac. And so, it was only natural that I wanted to complete the series. So we finally did. These are the next 4 of the series. This is Darkmoor Penitentiary. And this is following the character Rosalie. Now she is absolutely bomb. I love her character. So this is also reverse harem, just like Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac. Reverse harem, for those that don't know, is a main female lead with multiple male partners. Now in this book, I really enjoyed it a lot better than Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac because I actually liked our main female lead. I was like, all right, she's a badass. Like, she deserves all the loving. Like, she's actively saving their butts. She's so smart. She's so cool. And it just made sense to me. Also, her fae category order is a wolf, and wolves in this series are known to be polygamous. So it made a lot more sense to me. Whereas in the original series where you get reverse harem, which is Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac, it just didn't make sense to me. And I hated our main female lead character. So that really ruined that series for me. However, this series I thoroughly enjoyed. In fact, this series as a whole, I would probably give a solid 4.5 to 5 stars. But I will say this duo of authors love throwing random sex scenes into the book in places sometimes where it doesn't always make sense. So if that's going to bother you, just know that it is there. You can skip it. They're not necessary in all times to the plot line, but it is very cute to see the romances of some of these characters and their relationships as the book progresses. The first book is called Caged Wolf. Now this one basically introduces Rosalie going into Darkmoor Penitentiary, which happens to be the prison system known in Solaria to be the hardest prison system to escape. You kind of get introduced to all of your main 5 characters. So you get introduced to Rosalie, who's our main female lead, Sin, who happens to be one of our inmates that she is getting paid to break out, and then Rory, who is her love of her life that she's been interested in since she was 12 years old, and she is the cause of getting locked up, so she's there to break him out. Then you have Kane, who happens to be a correctional officer in Darkmoor Penitentiary, but he has kind of a gray scale heart, if you will. And then last but not least, we have Ethan Shadowbrook, who happened to be the replacement for Ryder, who is one of our main characters in the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac series and is now the head of the gang of the Lunar Brotherhood. Any hoodles, that was a lot of speech just there. This is basically kind of establishing the dynamic of Darkmoor Penitentiary, the hierarchy within the prison system, as well as kind of showcasing Rosalie's relationship with all 4 of the men in this book. So this book is kind of more introductory. It's very entertaining. It's very fun. It's very fast paced. And this one I would give a solid 3.5, 4 stars. The second book in the series is called Alpha Wolf. Now, Alpha Wolf is a little bit more interesting. They're actually attempting escapes at this point. The first escape that they try does fail miserably, but it was also fun to read. It also showcases her relationship with all the different boys and how they're slowly starting to grow. You kind of get an appreciation for all the different main characters as well. I particularly love Sin. I think he's a misunderstood character and he's just so funny. I also really, really enjoy Rory, and I also really enjoy Kane. This series overall, I think, is just much more well written because all of the male characters have a lot of personality, but the main female lead does too. And it's fast paced and it's continuously moving. These are also some of the shortest books that these 2 women have written. To give you an idea, the Zodiac Academy series, the shortest book, well, not including the novellas, the shortest book that I can think of in that series is about 400 pages. The longest book is over 1,000 pages. So I also appreciated the fact that these books are shorter because it packs a punch, it's to the point, it's fast paced, it's quick, it's enjoyable, and it's entertaining. Then next up, we have Feral Wolf. So this continues to follow the storyline of them trying to escape. You also get a little bit more information on a darker plot twist that's happening within the Darkmoor Penitentiary itself, of Fays getting their power and their order stripped from them. It's a very interesting conceptual idea, and it definitely added more thrill to the book. And this one is also the shortest book in the series. It's again fun, fast paced, and very, very enjoyable. I give this one a solid 4 stars. And then our last book, I think, was a little bit rushed. Basically, for the first 80% of the book, you have nothing that's really happening. You just have them kind of like regrouping, thinking, figuring out what their next steps and plans are, and then everything happens in the last 20%. This is one book that I do think it would have made sense to be just a little bit longer and to kind of give us more, if you will, of the storyline. I think at the end, everything gets wrapped up with a bow, which I always love in a book, but I do think it was a little too easy the way that it got wrapped up. But overall, it was still very enjoyable. They also, as in the authors, also tend to do in the end of a series excerpts, like additional chapters at the end of the book, just following the lives of the characters, like immediately 2 weeks later, like a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later. So you kind of get to see the dynamic of all the characters as they evolve and grow in their relationship in the future. And that's always something that I've really enjoyed about the way that they write their books. So that was also really fun to read. That being said, this one was probably my favorite because, again, it is the one that has the most that's going on and kind of wraps up the story. So this was a solid 4.5 stars for me. Overall, I would say that the entire Darkmoor Penitentiary series is probably a solid like 4 to 4.25 star read for me, and I did do a full series review if you are interested in seeing more. That being said, that does bring us to the end of the video. If you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I know this is a longer one, and I really just want to thank you guys for being here with me. For those of you that are new, if this is kind of up your alley and you love all things books, then you're definitely in the right place. Consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. I would love to have you back. I talk all things books every Sunday and Wednesday. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. And as always, to everyone, please do leave comments, recommendations, thoughts, whatever you may be thinking, because I do want to create a bookish community here. That is the goal, and I always welcome thoughts and opinions. And I can't thank you enough for all of your support. Thank you so much. Wishing you all a wonderful 2025 with success, joy, and happiness in whatever endeavors you take, and plenty of positive and happy memories with all of your loved ones. I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.